What is up, everybody? You are dialed into the Dialed Up podcast. I'm Darby, joined by Luke Callahan, Zane Chapelier, and we got a little special primed up for you guys to go into further on the Miami Clemson matchup. We kind of talked a little bit about it in our main podcast earlier this week, but I really wanted to dive in more on it. I mean, this is a great matchup.
I mean, we all did.
Yeah.
We're all pretty amped up. This is
Yeah.
the first true big game. I
Yeah.
think that really has that anticipation and hype factor behind it. I mean, you had Auburn, Georgia last weekend, but other than those fan bases, I don't think too many people on a national stage were really like, oh, I can't wait to fucking watch this.
Yeah, and I feel like this game doesn't have as much media behind it as you would really expect, and maybe that's on purpose.
Well,
I don't really know,
yeah.
but I would expect there to be a lot more jibber jabber about what's about to go on this weekend, especially from everyone in college football. Just in general, I would be expecting way more highlights on TV and things about this game, hyping this shit up because it's about to be damn near this could potentially look like almost like a national championship
Caliber.
profile game.
Yeah. I mean, and the national media hasn't really been, the national media outlets haven't been hyping it up, but the people that have been watching football and those diehard fans that finally got to see, all right, Miami may actually have a little something going on this year, and that have gotten to watch all of the games that Miami's played to this point and see the improvement that they've made even from the first game, and especially from last year. Especially on social media, you're starting to see that they may have a shot.
Right.
And that's the thing that's kind of driving the excitement around this game. And, boys, I can't wait to talk about it. Woo!
It's funny you bring up the lack of media around it, because I was actually wanting to start off talking about the Clemson media, because I've spent all week at work listening to, of course I listen to my Miami podcast, but when I wasn't listening to them, I was listening to Clemson podcasts.
Yeah.
I hit every Clemson podcast that came out on Apple Podcast, and I was honestly, I was a little shocked. I can't be crazy shocked because of how much hype we get every year at the beginning of the year, and then end up flopping around this time. So it wasn't entirely super shocking, but I was a little surprised that they were kind of blowing it off a little bit. Like it was like another game to them, just, whatever. Acting like a typical ACC matchup. But if we're being honest, I think this is the best ACC team that they've faced since, the loaded FSU rosters. Because, coming out of the ACC, the only strong teams we've had in the last 7-8 years was Miami in 17.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech's always kind of there, but they're always meh.
Yeah.
And then, Louisville, when they had Lamar Jackson, which they couldn't get it done because they had no defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, those, and then you got Florida State, who's always had that loaded roster that's slowly become depleted.
Yeah.
Since Jimbo left. But ever since they were, FSU was that dominant team, there hasn't been a real challenger in the ACC.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're just blowing it off because it's been so long that they've had one that they're just it's just Miami.
If you look at it, since Dabo took control over that program and really came onto the scene, they haven't had anybody to challenge them in the conference. They have been by far and away the most dominant team to come out of that conference. They've put themselves on a pedestal and said, look, we are this much better than everybody else in here, and if you want to challenge us, good luck, because you don't have the talent to do it.
Yeah.
They were recruiting at such a much higher level than everybody else in the ACC. FSU had talent, and Louisville, they had a Heisman-winning quarterback. Mm-hmm. But in terms of full depth and full rosters that are talented, and then you have good coaching on top of it, which is what FSU has been missing on all of those loaded rosters, they haven't had anybody to come close until now. Even Miami has had talent, but they haven't had the coaching behind it. And I think this year they have the right meld, and we'll get into it, of they have the coaching now. They have the talent. They have the coaching.
We have the offense now. That's the biggest difference. I know it comes down to coaching because our offensive coordinator is the big reason behind it. But I've been saying it and saying it and saying it. You've heard me say it and say it and say it for years. This team needs a modern offense. If we've had the defense. If we had a championship caliber defense for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
but we needed the offense, and it never did it. And then now we do, and I think, and I understand. Like I said at the beginning, I understand why people sleep on us this year because it's every year, man. Is the U back? We hear it every year. So I get it, but to me, I just don't fully comprehend the fact that these like Clemson guys that do and specialize in going in and looking at their opponents and like wanting to put up these in-depth conversations.
Yeah.
They don't even really put up in-depth conversations about this game. They just don't really care. To me, it's mind-blowing to me that this is like the biggest matchup they've had in years.
Yeah,
in the ACC.
Especially when you look at some of the matchups that you're going to have. I mean, especially with Clemson has always prided themselves in the trenches, and Luke is probably going to get into this a little bit more, and we can talk some line. But in the trenches, that's where they prided themselves. They had NFL product after NFL product on both the offensive line and the defensive line. And this year, I mean, Trevor Lawrence and last year, you hardly ever saw him on the ground. He was hardly ever sacked, right? And this year, he's already been sacked 5 times against Virginia and Wake Forest. And I don't think anybody in the nation would say that Wake Forest or Virginia's defensive lines are anywhere as good as Miami's. So that becomes a real concern. Yes, he has escapability and he will always remain poised and always stay in the game, but how is he going to escape this pressure? How is he going to handle the looks that Manny Diaz and the Miami defense are going to be giving him? Because, I mean, you're going to have to find a way to stay off your back. You can't ride ETN the entire game. Lawrence he's going to produce. He's going to, put up numbers, but those sacks, especially at key junctures in the game, key drives, man, those are going to happen, I think, a lot more frequently than people are expecting.
Yeah, and on top of that, too, just what you mentioned about those sacks and, going into, Clemson's offensive line, a few new guys. Now these guys have experience and they've played. They have snaps under their belt, but they're a little bit younger. And then on top of that, looking into it as well, I was frustrated. I was trying to find some way to pull up these games so I could see how these sacks occurred. Where these pressures were coming from. Was it a stunt that was kind of throwing them off?
Was it coverage?
Was it coverage? Right. Did he actually have a full 5 seconds in the pocket and then just nothing happened? Or those kinds of things make a huge difference in whether it sucks because I haven't really watched any of the Clemson games, and so I don't know where these things are coming from. I don't have anything recorded, obviously. So going into it, I was just frantically looking for anything I could possibly find. I could find nothing other than just interviews of Clemson's offensive linemen, and so looking into it, I think there's a lot of things you could take in that aspect. Now if you want me to just go ahead and dive away at the trench stuff.
Let's dive into the trenches a little bit.
Okay, so looking into Clemson's offensive line and then looking at Miami's defensive line. Now, Roche is a fucking monster.
Yep.
Right? But the thing is, if this dude really wants to play in the NFL, this has to be the game that he absolutely balls out in first and foremost. Now, you could have a stellar game going into a national championship and stuff like that, but this for them has to be like their national championship. You're playing the winner.
Yeah.
So I think that he has to have an absolute stellar game. And then not on top of that, I look into that too. And you can't sit there and say that, Clemson's quarterback's going to be an easy takedown.
No.
That dude's a big son of a bitch, and he can fucking run.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's not going to be your simple... So, on top of that, they can't just be sitting here training, all these different stunts and whatever defensive, game plans that they might have, but they also got to really make sure that they're practicing, and I'm sure they are, hopefully, on taking down a big body who's not afraid to throw him to the side. If anything, they should be having their scout team sit back there with a defensive lineman holding the fucking football and just practicing pocket collapsing and tackling a fucking big-ass dude with the football, because in reality, that's what it's going to feel like.
Yeah.
You're tackling a fucking defensive end with a football.
Yeah.
In reality. So, looking into that, and that's maybe that I don't think that's something that they're going to be quite used to once they get to him. So I'll admit that either they're going to come in and smack the shit out of him, if they get to him right away. I don't think it's going to happen that way. I think it's going to be envision the very first time that Miami almost has a fucking sack, he's going to slip away and get 10 yards.
Well, and here's a question. Now, Phillips got kicked out of last week's game. Is he out the first half of the game?
They have him listed as the starter and coming into this game on the depth chart.
Okay,
because I believe it's because he was ejected for T1 sportsmanlike, so it wasn't like
so
the
it's
targeting.
only one half of a ball game.
I don't know the rules behind it.
Yeah.
So because I did listen into some other podcasts on Miami side that they asked about that, and they said for as far as they can tell, he should be playing from the get go. Because it wasn't a target, it's different in like a targeting sense. Because
that is a big factor, especially when you're looking at a defensive line that is loaded with talent, and I think Phillips has shown his colors far more than Roche has thus far this year. And they have a difficult task ahead of them, not only containing and trying to get to Trevor Lawrence, but you have to add in the run game with Travis Etienne. I mean, he's going to find his gaps. This is a young offensive line, and I mean, there's 3 sophomores, I want to say, on the Clemson offensive line, and only one senior who is the center. And let's see. Yeah, 3 juniors.
Yes, 3 juniors,
3 juniors, 2 sophomores, and a senior make up the Clemson offensive line. So, if I was going based off of what I see in terms of age and experience on the offensive line, I would expect Clemson to probably be running to their left quite a bit. Because that's where their guys are. That's where their stud offensive linemen are. So I would expect Etienne to be running to his left quite a bit, at least early, trying to establish a run game. So Miami's going to have to be ready to battle in those trenches early on, man.
Yeah, and this is another thing that I see coming out of this, too. Because of this kind of possible mismatch that we might be looking into, I think eventually Clemson's going to have to kind of rely on the fact that they're going to have to, if they're getting pressured by Roche, if they're getting pressured by the defensive tackle,
Nesta Silvera.
Yeah, if he's getting pressure on them too, then don't be surprised if Clemson, decides to go 12 personnel and bring in 2 tight ends and start to double team these defensive ends and get help with more double teams in the trenches and just run the shit out of the football. I also picture it the other way around, so this is why I picked my score maybe the way I did, but because you would imagine that Miami's going to bring the fucking heat.
Yeah.
To try and really eliminate the possible big time pass plays and really put pressure on Clemson's quarterback. Now, because of that, I could see Clemson changing it up, if they're not already changed it up, to a run game plan where they bring in that 12 personnel and things like that.
Well, so while you're talking about this, I should have brought it up earlier, but there's a very good chance that it's going to be storming like crazy during this game and raining hard as hell.
That hurricane is coming into
supposed to be going up there by game time.
Okay.
Unless it misses. They've said now. When I listened to the Clemson podcast, a lot of them said that right now they personally think that it's probably going to drift too far west.
Yeah.
And miss.
Because it's supposed to go up the Mississippi Valley.
They could get some rainstorms still.
Yeah. Yes.
Now imagine. Now that's fucking sweet. Hurricanes beat Clemson Tigers in the middle of a fucking hurricane. That would be a fucking headline for the ages.
So, but
let me go ahead and just really quickly finish what I'm saying. So, with that being said, I think now, on top of the weather, I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring game. Maybe not as many big time plays from both sides of the ball. Because then Miami, you're looking at Clemson's defensive line. They're a little bit younger too. There's a couple sophomores too. And so I'm looking at it as, from that perspective, I think Miami maybe has the advantage from an offensive line standpoint. And they've already got solid running backs, and their quarterback can take off.
Yeah.
So why not run the fuck out of the football at them and then make them respect the shit out of it, so then you can get those big time pass plays if you need them. But with the weather and everything accounted for, I think this game's not going to be a high scoring, explosive game. I think it's going to be a very well thought out offensive game plan, defensive game plan game.
Either way, you're going to have to scheme, right? Because this is one of those games where coaching is really going to come into effect, and you're going to have to out-coach the opponent.
Right.
That's one thing where I think, obviously, Clemson's very well coached. They have been for years. But here, as of late, they've shown some weakness in terms of how they're getting up to the line, right? Especially defensively. So we've seen their defensive line kind of being slow to get in their stance, slow getting ready when they're facing some sort of tempo. And Darby, you can get into more of this a little bit better than I can. But they haven't faced any kind of tempo like they are with Miami. Because Miami is the fucking Energizer Bunny.
Yeah.
They go.
If Rhett Lashley really keeps the foot on the gas, I mean, he shows it. He typically shows it kind of early on to kind of set the tone. Of course, we've been, our last two opponents, we've blown them out, so we haven't been able to really stay that tempo. But if he can get it to where we're sustaining that tempo, I really think it's a big thing. And that's I heard this coming off of I can't remember who it was. It was a national writer brought that stat up, talking about how they have a hard time this year with Brent Venables getting his signals out to the defense in time, and they struggle getting ready and prepared. So I think you're going to be going up against Rhett Lashley, who literally gets plays off every 10, 11 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, literally pass play. All right, 10 seconds. We're snapping the ball. It's not like getting set then 10 seconds. It's 10 seconds. That ball's snapped.
Yeah.
Half the time we're waiting on the ref to snap before we can snap the ball.
And if Clemson's having a hard time getting their defensive calls in, then going into this game that they're going to be sitting there thinking like, how the fuck can we get these calls in? So they probably at the very beginning of this week had already been scrambling on how to get faster signals in, which in that case kind of changes already what kind of signals they have in availability as far as their playbook.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they defensively they come out with coaches' wristbands and they just start shooting in numbers. I wouldn't be surprised if the issue with them getting lined up is them looking to the sideline and getting the signal.
They're gonna have too much pride. Clemson's gonna have too much pride to fucking wear wristbands. If they come out with wristbands, I'll be shocked and I'll respect the fuck out of their defensive coordinator for how humble he is. I think they're gonna have too much fucking pride to come out with wristbands.
Yeah, I mean
that's an ego thing for most coaches.
But still, I mean, if you aren't getting the calls in, especially knowing the tempo that you're going to be going up against, it's a lot quicker from a coaching standpoint and a player standpoint. Well, specifically a player standpoint. All right, get the tackle. The offense is going to be getting in quick. Look to the sideline, get a number. All right, dope. 17. All right, I know my job.
Yeah.
And just keep it sweet and simple. And obviously, you're going to have different coaches throwing in different numbers or different signs. Your D-line group's going to be looking at one coach. Your secondary is going to be looking at one. Because secondary doesn't necessarily need to know the stunt. They just need to know the coverage.
Yeah.
And so you'll be able to mix and match your looks and stunts and games and everything that you're going to be running still. But it's just more efficient and quicker when you really don't have time to waste against a fast-moving offense.
Well, and so we can stay on the subject because I think the absolute key factor in this game is going to be our offense versus their defense. If I was to pick a matchup of both sides, I think it's our offense versus their defense that's going to make the game. And you look at that Virginia game last week. Like, not only did Virginia put up 23 points, they put up 400 yards of total offense. Virginia lost. I mean, their quarterback, Bryce Perkins, he was their offense last year and 2 years ago. He has been their team. They were a complete rebuild mode on that offense.
Yeah.
And for them to put up 23 points and 400 yards is telling to me.
No, I agree with that.
Well, and what would Virginia, who the hell did they barely beat Wake, didn't they? Or was it Duke they barely beat?
I can't remember. I didn't.
I'm looking it up right now. Let's see. It was Duke. 38-20. So it wasn't barely beat. They won by 18. But still, they... okay. Oof.
Yeah, I mean...
There's concerns all the way around. I mean, this is the first time where I look, other than the Ohio State game and the playoff, where I look at Clemson and I see that they are...
I smell weakness.
Yes. This is the
like
first...
serious, real weakness.
And not just in, like, the team itself, but in specific matchups. Like, this is the first time since the playoff semifinal against Ohio State where I look at certain matchups and I go, I think Clemson is outmatched here.
Oh, yeah. And so when you bring up matchups, it brings me to another really good point, and it's also staying on Clemson's defense, is they don't have Isaiah Simmons anymore. Okay, they don't have that guy that can go at linebacker and run a
True.
4.4.
Yeah.
Their linebackers this year are notoriously unathletic, not that quick. And that begs the question with Miami, and you talk about this weather, for instance.
Right.
We run a two tight end,
I
system.
don't
we
think,
have two tight ends that are, top 2 round picks.
Yeah, that's true.
And then who's going to match up against them?
And the tight ends, in my opinion, Miami's tight ends are better than their wide receivers.
Well, Brevin Jordan's the best receiver we have.
Yeah.
So-
They're both their tight ends are better than their wide receivers, in my opinion.
And Rhett Lashley's shown that he can scheme a way to get him down.
So I think, especially if they're weather, Miami's best option is 12 personnel.
Well, this is how I see it. I think they might go 12 personnel. I think they might go with like that pistol package where they have like one attached and one playing like that fullback, superback slot.
Yeah, we like to do that.
So I envision them, if they end up getting into those situations, they'll probably start off with not even attached tight end. They'll just have the superback kind of moving back and forth and doing some other things, which that can be deadly if you're really efficient with it.
Brevin Jordan, they've shown that they do that, especially, and they like to release him on a combination of routes.
Mm-hmm.
They
You
just
can do a lot with it.
They just do the swing to the flats.
The pop.
They'll do the pop pass up the seam.
Mm-hmm.
They do a delay, the block and
Yep.
release. They've already shown quite a bit from that
They
formation.
can run the whip out of it too, because
Yeah.
you can make it look like he's coming in to block and then dip out.
You can run a Texas route off of that or an angle
That
route.
was the offense that I coached for like the past 2 years, so that was a lot of fun. And you can do so much shit with
Yeah.
it once you get really efficient with it. The hardest part was with play calling. Now I don't think that's a problem with Rhett Lashley.
No.
So
And to me, because I guess, and one of the big reasons what made me really want to do this and like talk a little bit more about it is, one, everyone's acted like my friends, my friends that listen to the podcast acted like it was nuts. Let alone for me to pick Miami.
But for both of us.
Well, dude, my buddy pointed it up. He's like, dude, how did all three of you pick Miami?
how do you not?
Well, and
If you really look into
I just
it.
don't think, because I don't think from an outside perspective, some people that don't sit here and watch, because I watch the ACC.
Yeah.
I don't just watch Miami. I pay really close attention to the ACC, and I've been preaching it that I don't think this Clemson team is the same. It's not the same Clemson team.
No.
Like, people need to get that through their heads. This is not the juggernaut. I know they're number one. I know they're coming off their best recruiting class they've ever had. I get that, but that's still their true freshmen. So it's not going to be a crazy impact.
The thing that we, I think, do a little bit different is, how do most people watch the game? They do one of two things. They have a huge TV in their living room, and they're watching a game, and they're switching through games. They go to the sports bar, and they're watching maybe 3 games, but you're also caught in conversation. You're eating, you're drinking.
Which caused me to rewatch the Florida State.
I'm listening to you. I'm sorry, I'm looking something
Yeah,
up.
no.
I'm listening.
How do we watch the game? We sit our asses in those chairs back behind us.
And we
analyze
everything.
We have 4 games going,
Yep.
and we don't just have what's available on cable. We have the Fox, we have the CBS, we have the ESPN, but we also have the ACC network, the SEC network. We have pretty much access. We watch ESPN Plus
to almost any game we want to watch.
Any game we want to watch,
we're
watching. If there's an opponent that one of us has coming up and they have a game that's not nationally televised on a major network, we still are watching that shit. And that is the thing that I really love about our setup. So we're able to take in a lot more games, and that's why I think we're more well versed, honestly, in the fucking Sun Belt right now than we are even in like the American or the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So
one thing that I'm not only just taking Miami and like the possibility of them winning, but right now the fucking spread is they think Clemson's gonna win this shit by 14. They think Clemson's gonna win this game by fucking 14 or more.
And it's
so. I don't see
that
at all.
Look, so
because
because this is how I view that spread. I view that spread as paying too much attention to last year versus this year.
Yeah.
Because you're taking Clemson, went to the national championship, got blown out by one of the greatest college football teams to ever play in a season, and then a 6-7 Miami team.
yeah,
I get the spread.
But
The problem is
disregarding so much
they're
of what's going
not
on
paying
this year.
attention.
Yeah, and like this
Well,
is
not paying attention.
The people that make the spread, they are too damn good at their job for a reason. There's a reason that they're the people that are making those. I think they pay attention. However, I think
they pay attention to more than just the game of football, though.
yeah,
I bet you they're also paying attention to where the hype is.
but not just that. The people that I don't put any blame on the people that make the spread. I think that they believe with the talent that Clemson has, and yes, Miami's put up good numbers against the teams that it's played, including a Louisville team, but they're playing the betting game, right? They're trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to get bets, and how are we going to make the casinos money?
Exactly, because they know they're going to bet on fucking Clemson.
Yes.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
So that's what they're playing. The thing I don't understand is how you can be watch college football and be analytical in how you watch college football and look at these two teams and the composition of these depth charts and the coaching staffs and the performances that they have this year and think that Miami doesn't have a shot in the dark to beat Clemson. That's where my question comes in. Now, do I think Clemson can win? Absolutely. It's Clemson. They could 100% beat Miami. Do I think Miami could win? Absolutely. I picked them to win. But I don't think there's a way that you can look at either of these team compositions and say, oh, that team doesn't have a shot.
Yeah, 14 points. But when you're the guy who makes the spreads, you're sitting there going, what's everyone talking about? What's everyone looking at? And more people are talking more about this team than they are that team.
And what the talking point is this is Clemson's only test this year.
Yeah, well,
this is their test for the playoff again. This Notre Dame, but this is their test.
Right.
So that's what they're looking at it as. They aren't looking at it like, oh, this is Miami's chance to prove themselves. This is just another test for Clemson to get ready for the playoff and to beat Notre Dame later on in the season.
I'm going to tell you something. Because I've been thinking about this thing, this thought all week, is what this game really reminds me of, hardcore, is 2017 Miami versus Notre Dame. Because that's how it was leading up into that game. It was all I heard. All I heard up to that point was Notre Dame's going to run it down their... No, I'm not I don't want to bring up that douchebag that didn't actually watch his team. But all I heard was about Josh Adams. He was going to run it, Heisman hopeful was going to run it down Miami's throat. It just reminds me so much of that it was like we were counted out, and it's just like this, because more than I've heard about Trevor Lawrence, I've heard Travis Etienne was going to tear us apart, is the biggest thing I've heard coming into this game. And I just don't think, that's where I think, and that's why I wanted to get you in on the tail of the trenches, was I think that people are underestimating this Miami D-line versus that Clemson offense.
Well, not even just the defensive line, though. Another thing that I just kind of looked into, too, was, Zach McCloud. That dude's got a good amount of experience under his belt, and he's not a shitty linebacker by any means. Now, what would you say is more his style of play? Is he a run stopper, or is he more of a secondary guy?
For style of play, I'd probably go more so into coverage or rushing, because he was converted from an outside backing spot.
So you say he's more of a run stopper? Or is he balanced?
I think he's kind of balanced, to be honest. Right. I can't really pinpoint where I would fit him most, to be honest.
Right. And, I mean, I'm looking at this as when you have the capabilities that Miami's defense has in the box, right now we look at it, and that's why I asked you those questions, because I don't really know anything about McLeod. Now, I think he's probably a solid football. Obviously, he's starting, but the one badass on your defensive box really is Roche. But, you were mentioning about...
I would disagree with you on that. I think all three, the starting defensive tackle, Phillips, and Roche, are all studs. And I think all three of them outmatch the offensive linemen that they're going to be matched up against. And that's why I think I'm gonna skip ahead. I'm going to get into my key players for this game. My key player for Miami's defense is Zach McCloud, strictly because he's their third leading tackler right now. Coming into this game, he's the third leading tackler, and it's going to be up to him to shoot that gap and keep his contain whenever Clemson tries to get into those inside zone, outside zone plays that they love, right? He's going to have to fill the gap and just rely on those 3 stud D linemen to do their job, do their part.
Eat up the double team.
Yep. And I think he's going to have a big game. He already has a forced fumble and a fumble recovery. He has 16 total tackles. He's already shown that he's around the ball. He flies to the ball. He's a secure tackler. But not just that, you also have Bubba Bolden, who's going to be in the box. His nose is going to be around the box, on the ball. He just sniffs out action.
So you want to know a funny thing? Because we've been talking nonstop about Bubba Bolden.
Yeah.
You want to know the funniest stat of all about Bubba Bolden?
What?
He's been rotating in.
I know.
He's starting this week because Gervin Hall got that targeting last week in the second half, and he's sitting the first half. So now Bubba Bolden's our starting safety. He's not going to be just. He's been an OR, as they call it. He's a rotating safety, and now he is full on starting.
Oh.
Hopefully he starts it off well. Now, who's number 1 and number 2?
Amari Carter. Bubba Bolden's number 2. He has 17 total tackles.
And then Amari
Carter, our freaking lay the wood.
Mr.
Almost
gets targeted.
Yeah, Mr. Targeting
every
himself.
Game, so.
But I think McLeod and your linebacking. I mean, you look at what is it? Frierson.
Those are good stats to have.
Frierson.
Yeah, he's our striker. Gilbert Frierson's the striker.
Yeah, he's right there in 4th with 12 total tackles. I mean, you just look at this.
Well, I mean, look.
Hold on. Let me put this up on.
Well, look, because I wanted to point this out because I brought this up to you earlier before we started. Look who's sitting at that 5th spot.
You have Silvera. Then you have Brooks.
So above our defensive ends, dude.
Yeah.
Nesta Silvera.
Dude, he's a force in the middle, and that's where
I'm telling you, dude.
I'm sitting here now. I do want to say though, I do kind of want to see this from the Clemson defensive standpoint too.
Yeah, I got you.
No, I agree though that Darby, you're 100% right. I think the make or break of this is going to be the matchup between Miami's offense or Miami's defense and.
No, I think Miami's offense versus Clemson's defense is going to be the big one for me personally.
So yeah, I'd like to see Clemson's defense. If Darby thinks that that's going to be the serious matchup, then we want to definitely take a look into that.
See,
from a statistics point of view, I think Miami's defense is going to be okay.
I'm not.
I think they're going to be able to wreak some havoc.
Yeah.
See, now I want to know what the fuck Clemson's going to be able to do defensively.
I disagree with Darby on that. I think the key matchup is Miami's defense against Clemson's offense. I think it's best versus best, right? Clemson. I think Miami's going to be able to put up the points, and that comes through clear in my prediction that I think they're going to put up 38. I think the key is being able to contain Trevor Lawrence and pretty much limit the run game of Travis Etienne. Because Etienne, they're going to use Etienne run first to set up the pass. That's what's going to happen. So
I think I see it from your perspective where you have a little bit of faith in your defense.
So my reasoning is I know what my defense is going to be coming into this game for the most part. So my question is always going to be our offense in big games. That's why I have them set as the key.
And I 100% agree with that. I completely understand that because it's usually your offense that.
Here's your stats for the Clemson defense. Balin Spector, their linebacker, leads with 20 sacks or 20 total tackles.
20 sacks. That'd be
my
nuts.
20 total sacks. Your 2 DNs.
Who is that again? James Golaski?
No, Spector.
Oh, okay.
Then you have Miles Murphy with 15 tackles.
Mm-hmm.
James Skasky.
Yep, Skasky.
With 13. And then Regan Upshaw with 11. So that's 2 defensive ends and 2 linebackers. What I don't see here that I saw on Miami's is defensive tackle, 7 tackles.
Yeah.
That's the first defensive interior. So what that tells me is that on the run game, their linebackers are having to make a hell of a lot of tackles. And
how's that number 1 dude doing?
Number 1.
Breezy, was that his name?
Oh, Brian Breezy. He has 6 tackles, 1.5 sacks.
Okay. I was just curious what his stat
line
looked like.
Looking at those stats and just knowing how Miami's offense plays, I expect Miami. I honestly think that they're going to have some draw plays that are going to be big time for them. I also think that they're going to. I could see them just running the ball just to come. I sat here thinking like Miami's going to come out the gates. If they return the kick, I was thinking Miami's going to come out the gates, just throw a deep one. But now I'm looking at it, and I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen. I think the first fucking play Miami runs is the fucking run play. And same with Clemson, honestly, because I think they're both going to have to respect each other and kind of see what everyone's actually capable of and get their linemen warmed up for this shit, because this is going to be a fucking hell of a game.
Yeah.
And the best way to get your linemen warmed up is to fucking just run a simple fucking run play. First play of the game. I'm telling you, it's a lot easier to fucking attack than it is to fucking just pass protect first play.
Well, let's go some key players here. So I already gave you my one for Miami defensively.
I was gonna say, so give me offense and defense for both teams.
and I am. So defensively, I'm going McLeod for Miami. Obviously, Bubba is going to show up, but I think it's going to be up to McLeod to really shoot the gaps and try to limit Etienne, because he's not even going to just have to be there on the run game. Travis Etienne has 172 yards on 9 receptions receiving out of the backfield, and that's most likely going to be McLeod. So I think McLeod is really the key guy for Miami defensively. Offensively, it's got to be Cameron Harris. Cameron Harris, you have to get the run game going, because Miami, I still don't have faith in their wide receivers. I like Brevin Jordan, but I still don't have the faith in that wide receiver core. It's got to be Cameron Harris first. You got to get the run game going. In terms of Clemson, I think it's going to be Ladson Jr. He's their number 2 receiver right now.
Yeah, he's a former.
You know Rodgers is going to be covered by Al Blades. I think that Ivy Ladson matchup is how Ladson performs against Ivy is going to be the biggest thing for Clemson's offense.
That also depends on how they line up Rodgers, because he is a small speedster. So I don't know and I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know how they line him up, if they line him in the slot, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Some teams like to line their speedster in the slot, and I don't think we'd put Blades in the slot. We'd keep Blades on the outside because he's too good at wide out coverage.
Yeah. And that's why I figured you'd have him on the number 1 guy. Biggest threat.
I think as long as he's if he's lining up outside, then yeah. If not, then he'd be the one on Ladson.
So the matchup for me is whoever, and Ivy has really shown up. He's gotten his shit together since that UAB game, and I am really happy to see it, because I had huge question marks for him coming out of that game, and he has played lights out since. So I hope he continues it and he doesn't have that down game. But whoever the wideout is across from Ivy, I think, is going to be the key for Clemson offensively. And then defensively, it's got to be what's his name? Spector? Yeah, Spector. I mean, he's already their leading tackler. He's going to have to ball out and really limit Cameron Harris. He's going to have to be the guy to stop Cameron.
I don't know if he's going to be the guy that's on Brevin.
Yeah,
Whoever's
exactly.
got Brevin's got the hardest job of this entire game.
Yeah. So that's my opinion on it. Luke, what are you thinking, Brown?
Well, I'm just looking at this, and I think the strength for both teams is obviously the offense. So when you're looking at this, it's like, fuck, both teams are going to want to make sure that their offense is doing well, as they should. Because the moment you see that the strongest part of your team is not performing as well as you want it to, then that's where you get really fucking worried, right? So I think that the matchups, though, it's really hard to fucking tell, because I think there's solid matchups all across the board. The offensive tackle for Clemson, he's probably one of the bigger badasses, Jackson Carman, and then he's going to be going up against pretty solid defensive ends, and I think the matchup there is obviously going to be the Roche. But then you're looking at the center for Clemson, he's also kind of like one of the vets, and he's going to be going up against fucking Silvera. So those are 2 solid matchups that you're going to be seeing the whole fucking game.
Well, what's that center's name again?
For Clemson?
Yeah.
That is Cade Stewart.
Yeah, so Cade, okay, he's not the one that only had 100 snaps.
Yeah, no, he's a bit of a vet.
So I think your key matchup in my eyes is Will Putnam. I think he's the left tackle or the right tackle. What's he on there? What's he on there?
You talking about the redshirt sophomore or
Putnam?
Well, he's the right guard.
He's the right guard. Okay, so he's not a tackle. So that kind of throws out what I was thinking. Because I was thinking this dude only has 192 snaps last year. So he was kind of in during garbage time, throwing him to the Wolves against one of those two stud DNs.
Well, you could say that
he's not a tackle; he's a guard, so he'll have some help.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with. I mean, Miami's got literally the same thing going on too with Ja'Kai Clark, left guard. You know, like he's kind of in the same boat as the right guard for Clemson. So I mean, overall, like these matchups are fucking just dead set even. But I think, from what I'm seeing and everything, like overall from the trench battle, Miami's got the upper hand in my opinion. But yet we still have to see. I mean, we obviously have the game to watch, but like I think overall the matchup goes to Miami because overall everything's almost even, but then Miami just has a little bit more of an offset in those trenches, and then when you start to include the linebackers, then it evens out even more. Yeah, you know, so it's like. It's really fucking hard to tell what the hell is about to fucking happen.
The one thing I will say is, while I think Miami's defensive line, in terms of their starters, is much better, you can correct me if I'm mistaken, but I think Clemson uses a much deeper rotation on the defensive line.
I wouldn't be able to give you an accurate, I couldn't tell you who goes deeper. Only because very poor choice of words. But I couldn't tell you in terms of who's the depth more because we've played the teams we played. Typically, Miami, we rotate a lot on especially defensive end, and I don't know this year if we still do it as much as in the past because these games have been blowouts. So it's hard for me to sit here and say, Miami rotates more because I think we do. Only because that's how Manny Diaz has always been. He rotates. We go 3 deep on both sides, which is quite a bit.
And because of all of these things and the way that this is adding up, and the way if you're really looking at this from a perspective of how you want to make sure, like I've told you guys, I've said this before, and this is something that I said about one of the Cincinnati games. When you go into a game and you just start off just fucking, dominant, going for the big plays right out the gate. Maybe you have a good setup game plan. Usually if it starts going well, then you just kind of stick to that. You don't make any adjustments. If you come out slow, like if you're being really methodical, like a fucking chess match, like as both these teams should, you're going to start off slow and methodical, not from a calling the play standpoint, getting lined up, but from the kind of plays that you call. So I'm thinking more of a kind of a run game approach from the very beginning because that's going to help warm your offensive lineman up to the speed and the action and the ability, and it's also going to help protect that fucking football because at least you're going to have it in the hands of a running back and not with a quarterback standing there 5 feet not paying attention to what's behind him. So because of all those things, I think that this game's going to start off kind of slow and methodical, and then it's going to start to expand real fucking quick once everyone gets kind of warmed up to the capabilities of who they're going up against. Yeah. So because of that, I think this whole going the first quarter, first half, I don't expect it to be more than fucking 14 by each team. I don't think either team's gonna score more than fucking 14 points in the first half. But then second half, that's when they're gonna be like, okay, we know who the fucking fish is. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna know who they can fucking attack and who they can go after based off of the scheme that they've seen so far. And then so going the second half, you might see a complete change of pace, which that's how I look at it. I don't think there's really any specific matchups that I can pick out in the trenches. I think it's going to be a solid battle across the board. Yeah. That's just how I see it. And if I'm being offensive coordinator, I'm fucking running the football and I'm getting my guys warmed up to the guys that they're going to be going up against so that they get a good idea. And I can see it. I know that football is fucking protected in the running back's hands. And then once we kind of get an idea, fucking third, fourth quarter, play action pass, baby.
I have you heard my prediction a little bit earlier. I think Clemson's going to start out run ball to the left, right behind their big experienced guys. But I want to hear your key matchups, your key guys for this game, man, because I know you've been diving into it on both sides this week. Who you got?
So I'll start offensively for Clemson. I am on board with a lot of other people with thinking. I think ETN's the big key.
Well, yeah, but I want to hear. We all know ETN's the key.
Well, I get that, but that's why I really think because this is going to be the toughest defense that any of them's gone up against since the playoffs last year. Yeah. And I want to see how he does against our defense. That's my biggest question mark because my biggest question mark in this game isn't even Trevor Lawrence, the potential number 1 pick in the draft. My key overall and what's going to be the catalyst of how Clemson plays is going to be Travis Etienne.
And see,
I know I didn't want to do it, but it's like I can't
that's
go.
why I didn't.
I can't really go anywhere else with it because I think if I were to pick, I can't like Luke's. I can't really pick an O-line matchup. I think it's overall. I want to see how their O-line handles our pass rush, and then
it's going to be.
I specifically tried to not pick Lawrence or Etienne.
Well, I tried too, and I was sitting here trying to go around it, but I can't. It's like because Etienne's such a big catalyst to me on how their success is going to go. He's been the unsung hero of this team since he's been there.
You fucking look at his stats. Like I said just a second ago, the dude already has 172 yards receiving and 243
rushing. So the dude. Obviously, their entire offense runs through him.
And so it's that, like, I really did, like I said, I didn't want to have to do it, but it's like I can't find a bigger key to me. You know what I mean? I can't find a bigger question mark to me. What to keep your eye on.
Whoa, this is an interesting stat.
What? Trevor Lawrence has a yard per attempt.
Yeah.
Running the ball.
That is interesting. His long is 22. Okay, that's accounting for sacks. Never mind. Never mind. Not as interesting as I thought it was.
He's got 3 rushing touchdowns too.
Yeah.
But you're sitting there talking about what Clemson's probably thinking the same fucking thing about Miami though. They're probably sitting there going, we're gonna have to make sure we fucking contain the fuck out of Derek King. We're gonna have to make sure he can't escape the fucking pocket. Once we start to collapse
how do we put a cap on Cameron Harris?
Yeah, they're gonna be thinking the same fucking thing.
But all right, so we know obviously Etienne is the stud. What about the other 3? Who you got for Miami's offense and defense and Clemson's defense?
So I'll stay on. I'm gonna do Clemson's first completely. So Clemson's defense. I want to see what's. I can't remember his freaking name. To save my life. Hold on, let me see it.
Who? Breezy?
No, not Breezy. Their other defensive tackle. Pinkney. Pinkney. Niles Pinkney is mine for Clemson's defense because to me, I think Clemson's gonna have to get penetration on us bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't see it coming so much on the ends as I do coming on the inside against us.
Phrasing.
Man.
You're struggling with that this episode.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you. So, I think, that's where the majority of they're going to have to get the pressure on or get that pressure through. And that's where my key is. And I've known of him for a very long time. He's a very good player.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's... Like, you look at those numbers, I just don't think their defensive line's been a stout. Of course, then again, this is, Clemson's blown out 2 teams and then struggled against Virginia. Well, not struggled, I'll put in quotes, because they put up 23 and 400 yards. But, so you got to also take into account the fact that they've been rotating, their backups in quite a bit.
And
so
they're freshmen, that
top
top recruiting class in their history, they've been getting those guys experience.
Yeah. So, but he's my key. On Miami's side, for Miami's offense, I'm going to go kind of off the board, and I'm actually saying Mark Pope.
Yeah,
because
I could see him being
I'm picking
a
him a
key.
key because we need it
Yes,
this game.
you do.
This game of all games, we need him to finally come in and really show why we put so much faith in him over the years. And
you know what you can't have?
Drops.
Muffed punts.
So they're still bad. Miami hasn't said who's going to be returning punts yet.
Okay.
My guess, watch for Xavier Restrepo to come out and return punts this game. And I think it's going to be more so to play it safe. But I think Mark Pope to me is the key. And because I could go Derek King. I think that's the obvious one. But and then on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going with Nessa Silvera. I'm going with both defensive tackles for both teams. I think the weak point of this Clemson offense is its interior of the O-line, because obviously that's where you put your most inexperienced guys. And I think that Nessa Silvera so far this year has gone off as a defensive tackle. And I just want to see how they contain him, really. I think that people have been sleeping on him only because everyone's so focused on our ends, which rightfully so. We're loaded. this whole defensive line is just loaded.
It is.
And the ends always get all the glory, but I think people haven't been paying attention too much to Nessa Severo outside of the Miami fan base, and that's where my key players are really.
Now, one thing that I want to still mention really quick, because we've drilled everything. I feel like the one thing we've really skipped over, which I told you could make or break you, is the fucking special teams. Do we have any stats or anything from the special teams or anything?
I don't know anything about Clemson special teams. Obviously, they're going to have athletes, right? They're going to have dude that's really athletic back there fielding the kicks. They're a powerhouse. They're going to have a good kicker. The key, I have 2 keys for the games because I know Clemson special teams are going to be solid. They're going to be polished. They're going to be good. The keys in special teams is whoever is returning kicks for Miami better not drop the damn ball. And then you have your X factor.
Can't afford any turnovers in special teams.
Mr. Category 5 leg himself.
Yeah, Jose Borregales, the number 1 kicker off the board this year.
The Cat 5. That's what I'm calling him.
Yeah. Because that's one thing that may, like you see those big fucking games, and sometimes there's just a fucking kick return that goes for 6. Everyone's like, God damn it, why didn't we work on that? You know what I mean? Like,
and Clemson, like I said, their shit's going to be polished. Their special teams are going to be good, but I don't know how explosive they're going to be.
Yeah,
I really don't. The biggest thing is going to be Miami holding on to the football on those punt returns. You can't give a short field to the Clemson offense.
We know from experience playing Clemson the last time when Jeff Thomas freaking muffed a punt in the ACC championship game when we were kind of hanging in there early on.
You can't do it.
He muffed the punt, and then that's what led to an onslaught.
But
and it's funny you bring up Jose Borregales and talk about key players. To me, is I said it when I made my prediction originally, and that I've said on is I really do think this game's going to come down to a final field goal, and he's going to hit it, and that's what's going to win it for us. Because I really do think it's going to be a freaking bloodbath of a game, very close. And
well, I was just going to say you can continue.
No, go ahead. That's pretty much what I made my point.
Yeah. So I think it's about time we wrap this baby up. Let's wrap it up and just state what our score predictions were.
24-21. I don't know who the fuck. Probably Miami.
So I had a little bit of a spread for Clemson.
Yeah, I want you to settle on a score here. You got to settle here.
38-31, Miami.
38-35, Miami. And before we get out of here, I want to give a message to the Miami fans. It's time to be... I understand that we're all nervous about this game because of the past. Everyone's talking about we just want this game to be competitive. But I think you guys aren't looking at the fact that we are able to win this game. And it's not getting enough attention that we can really do this, man. I feel really confident. We got this. But with that said, stay dialed in for more content. Check out our social medias. Links will be in the description. Keep paying attention. Get the word out. We'll be with you again on Sunday.
Let's get it.